Welcome to the King of the Court podcast with Ben Riggs and Ben Staten.
Welcome to the King of the Court podcast. I'm Ben Riggs. This is Ben Staten.
Yep.
Hey, we had first of all, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was wonderful, man. We had family over. My brother came and saw his two nephews, got to hang out with them. First time he's been able to meet them both in person together. And we ate too much food, gained too much weight. But all in all, it's been wonderful. How about you?
It was good. My sister and her family came in town. We actually called a Pelicans game the other night. We watched the Toronto Raptors absolutely curb stomp the New Orleans Pelicans, which basically fielded a G League team. But it was fun. We were walking through the corridor. So a kid my son plays basketball with, he plays basketball with the son. His uncle plays for the Raptors. And so we were sitting right next to them, and they were chatting it up, and all of them went down there. They were yelling at Garrett Temple to say hey and all this stuff. And then we go up there, and we're walking in the corridor to get some snacks. And we bump into a friend of ours from when we lived up in Shreveport, Louisiana. And he was like, yeah, my brother his company has courtside tickets. And their son, who was my son's best childhood friend, he was like, we've got 2 courtside tickets if you just want to let Levi go down there with him. And so I was like, sure. So like Levi was like sitting right under the basket. It was just him and his friend because they only had 2, so we couldn't send an adult down there with them. And so we're just like sitting in the normal seats, probably about 25 rows back. And Levi and his 2 9-year-olds just sitting under the basket by themselves. And like Levi's like, he's like pointing at DeJounte Murray, and DeJounte Murray pointed back at him. It was a really cool experience for my son. That was great. We did the LSU game last night. It's always fun to see Oklahoma lose. Huh?
Did you get worried when you start to see all the room service people show up with like plates of food for them, and they're like,
yeah, well,
running up a tab?
I'll say this we don't have to go into it, but very different childhoods for my son and I. I wasn't mucking it up with the DeJounte Murray types whenever I was 9 years old, courtside at an NBA game. I'll say that. But it was fun. It was a really good experience. Enjoyed going to the game with my brother-in-law. Thrilled that my son got to see his old friend, and they got to sit courtside together. So that was great. I tell you where I would have liked to have been courtside. Cleveland tonight.
Damn, that was a good game, man.
That was a hell of a game. It was the longest last 30 seconds of a game I've ever seen in my life. I believe the last 25 seconds took 17 minutes.
There's one point. So I believe it was Wednesday. My brother was in town, as I said. So I was like, let's go see a Wizards game. And so I meant to buy tickets. And this was on Tuesday. I meant to buy tickets for the Wednesday game against the Clippers. But I was distracted. And I accidentally bought tickets for that game that was happening in 1 hour. I didn't realize it until I got an alert on my phone saying, hey, your game's starting in 10 minutes. So I hustled down there. And it took us an hour to get to the stadium. And that took a half of basketball. And the last 30 seconds took basically the same amount of time, but lasted 30 seconds. So I felt a little shafted about the fact that...
But you got to see Harden, like vintage Harden.
Oh, yeah. He outscored the entire Wizards starting lineup combined.
Well, just to be clear, I think he outscored the entire New Orleans Pelicans lineup. Starters, bench players, like alumni, every day from what I saw.
No, he was fantastic. He had his 3 going, and he got his step back going, and he was just carving them up. And it was really fun to watch because the Wizards, I mean, they're just a bad team in general, but the one thing they do not have is any perimeter defense. I mean, Jordan Poole out at him. And as Shaq likes to say, it was his barbecue chicken from the start. He was just eating him. And then they had the brief Jonas Valanciunas moments where he came in and like just started mauling Zubac, which you don't see very often.
No, Valanciunas is a big boy. Yeah, Valanciunas is a big boy.
But watching them play is like watching like some like extinct dinosaur version of basketball, where they're just like they're basically At one point, they just like Zubac like hit him, like just dropped two fists on Valanciunas' shoulders like this, and Valanciunas just shoved him in the stomach. It was like, this is a basketball from the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about the NBA, though, is like even whenever you live in a city with a bad team, you get to go see like fun players. Other teams are great to go see. So, but circling back to this Cleveland Boston game, Cleveland beats Boston 115-111 in Boston. Put this in context. This was Boston without White or Brown. And I think Cleveland,
other colors, basically.
Yeah, and I think Cleveland was still missing Max Strus. But also that's the NBA, right? And
you beat who's in front of you. Yeah.
Huh?
You beat who's in front of you.
Yeah, you beat who's in front of you, and these are the best two teams in the East. Probably the best two teams in the league right now.
I'm about to do that right now. Yeah.
But it was an excellent game from start to finish. Fourth quarter, Donovan Mitchell put on an absolute masterclass. I think he had 16 before the free throw extravaganza began in the fourth quarter to close it out. I think he went to half. If I'm not mistaken, he went to half with 5 points. Yeah. Finished with 35, so he had a 30-point second half. Absolute great game from him. Also, a really, really, really good game from Darius Garland. The stat line looks relatively pedestrian, but the amount of time he spent on ball and organizing the offense and didn't have a single turnover, I think that's really, 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 really good basketball. And the thing I was most impressed with is Cleveland's got the ball moving. That ball was popping, and like that. If you're going to beat Boston, that's what it's got to look like. What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I think like two things. One, I mean, Boston lost by 4 points without basically 40 points of their starting lineup. One All NBA level player and one All Defense level player. So like, do I think Boston should be like going to sleep, worried tonight? No. Like, they played a fantastic game, but. But
that's basically how we felt after the first Cleveland-Boston game too. Was Boston played a great game, won the game. But if you're Cleveland, you're not walking away from that game with your head held low.
No, but this is what Kenny Atkinson has done in Cleveland. He should be coach of the year, and I think he is probably the solid favorite. But yeah, he has a team last year that looked completely out of sync offensively, with just a bunch of your turn, my turn. We can't get a shot off. Let's throw it into the paint to guys who don't know how to don't have any real post moves. Like completely out of sync. No like clear vision or like real like theory of what they wanted to do, and has made it into one of the most in sync offenses in the league. Players have all bought in. Garland and Mitchell, who looked very much happy and headed towards divorce last year. They did not want to play. I didn't know last year they both did not want to play together anymore. They are. I mean, you saw that at the end of the game when they won. They both the first thing they did was chest bump. And that shit looked real. And I think that
the recent episode with Jared Allen on I believe it was the Young Man into Three, the reboot of JJ Redick's podcast.
Yeah.
First of all, if you haven't listened to it, you should. The title of the episode is Most Interesting Person in the NBA. Jared Allen might actually be the most interesting person in the NBA. It was a great listen. But like he talks about the chemistry on that team and squarely attributes it to Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah. And it's just fantastic to watch. Now, like, do I think that this team still has like I think this is a team that is a title contender, but I do not think that they are at the same league of Boston. Like if I had to guess how that series would go right now, I think it would be a 4-1, 4-2 Celtics victory. But I think they put up a good fight. But
do you think it's kind of like those Nuggets Lakers series?
Yes, I think it's exactly like that. I think that's actually a really, really good comparison because I also think that you're going to see Mitchell rack up a lot of points and Celtics kind of just wait and hang around and then just blow them out at the end. But what was most interesting to me personally was you saw in the fourth quarter specifically how important Boston's sort of two-headed perimeter defense, like having both of those cogs, was to their offense. When, Jrue Holiday is a fantastic perimeter defender. But without White there, if you have two good offensive guards, you can start to disrupt their defensive strategy and get, even with Porzingis, even with Tatum, who played very well. You can get them out of rhythm, and you can disrupt them. With both of those guards, it's just really difficult because they have two all defense level. They probably have the two best perimeter defensive guards in the league on this, in their starting lineup. I think Boston was forced to play a funny lineup, as I mentioned before. They started both Porzingis and Horford. That's just, I don't know if they did that at all last year. What's his name? Davidson was getting, I think, got 20 minutes.
Is that his name?
No,
I don't think.
Drew Peterson.
Yeah.
I apologize, Drew Peterson. That's unfair to you. Drew Peterson got 20 minutes. I saw Luke Cornett embody the spirit of dearly departed Dikembe Mutombo during the game. I thought that was a great homage. But this was one of the best games of the season. It was a lot of fun to watch. I think that the Celtics have a lot they can learn from that. Tatum had a little bit of a rough fourth quarter. He had some good moments in it, and he also had a couple of assists he should have gotten when they just missed some threes. But I was encouraged by what he did in the fourth quarter. Was his shot was shaky, like he was sort of boomeranging between making 3 in a row and missing 4 in a row. That was kind of the way his night was going. But he was trying to get into the paint. He was trying to create for others. All around, just a great game. But this is no surprise. The Cavs, they just lost 2 in a row to Atlanta, who continues to have one of the more bizarre seasons I've ever seen.
Honestly, though, it's kind of the whole NBA where you see a team have a big win and you think they're about to turn a corner.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they turn around and they lose to Charlotte. And then you think that's not good. And then you watch Charlotte beat somebody you didn't think they should beat. And then it's just everything's just so chaotic right now. It's really hard to, there are a handful of teams that I think are sort of elite and at the top. I think certainly Boston and Cleveland are 2 of those teams. But to your point, I think a Cleveland-Boston series would be fun.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the best series in the East. Right now, if I had to pick best series in the East, I'd actually go Orlando-Boston. I think a fully healthy Orlando. I think Orlando's defense is really what intrigues me about them. And the Knicks still haven't really kind of put it together yet.
I think that's coming, though. I think it's coming. They just need to
I'm not worried about the Knicks. I felt all along the same way I did about the Mavericks, and you're seeing the Mavericks string it together now. And I think the Knicks will too. So I don't really have many takeaways that differ from yours on that Celtics-Cavs game. I thought it was an extremely fun game between 2 very high-level teams. I think what we talked about last time they played is still applicable. Part of the reason they're able to provide you with such competitive high-level games is because they're running it back with the same squads that they had last year. And there's a lot of chemistry between these guys. They know where they're supposed to be and what they're doing. They're bought in to what their coach's scheme. I think that one thing to keep an eye on with Cleveland is we're 20 games into this with Kenny Atkinson. I suspect there's a lot of room for improvement. And hopefully getting back somebody like Max Strus can help bring them to another level. Another big game